we've got our mechanism all back together, and it's time to put it back into the projector. So let's just put it in there. Now you have to pull this little shield for the belt for the bulb out. And you may recall there's a couple of sound rollers over here. You have to kind of feed them through. There you go. Now it's in there. That's it. When you can feel that it's flush against there, you're all good. So this should look fairly familiar to you. There's 4 screws, 2 in the top and 2 buried down there, or at least one that's buried. So on the top, we need to put this bracket, okay? Let's see. Need to put that bracket on. And it goes in with the curve towards the top, just like that, okay? And you may recall I put some little outlines of each end. Okay, so just reach around the back side and wiggle your mechanism around until you can feel those screw holes, okay? And then put one in by hand a few turns, and that'll keep it in there. And then get another one. Put it in the other side. Pretty simple, really. There you go. And there's a little bit of wiggling involved. And now for the time being, just get a nut driver or whatever you got handy. These are 5/16. But don't make them tight yet. Okay, so that one's snug. I'm going to back it out about a turn. Same way over here. That way you can still move and rattle the cage around. Okay, so now we need to get that bottom left screw in. It goes right down in there, and it's a bugger. So I'm going to readjust the camera, and we'll do that. Okay, so now I'm going to show you the secret that took me years of getting this lower left 5/16 bolt into the bottom of that projector, lower left behind the flywheel. Here's the secret. Okay, hold it in your right hand with those 2 fingers. Reach around the flywheel, and you see I'm putting my thumb through? That's the secret. Thumb in the flywheel hole. And then if you tilt your head a little bit, you can see that hole that it has to go into. And there it is. See, you can see it actually going through the plate. Now this is why we left the screws a little loose in the top. It's so we can jostle it and that screw won't bind. And that's it. I mean, you can just about thread this all the way in there now that you have the use of your right hand. But thumb through the flywheel, secret. Okay, that's probably snug enough. Now the other half of the secret, not really a secret, this is what auto mechanics know as a box end wrench. Okay, it has a ratchet at one end. This is a 5/16 with a 6-point socket. So reach around. Okay, this is a 2-hand operation. See my index finger going through there? With the finger of your left hand, hold that on to the head. And I've got it backwards, so just flip it over. It'll ratchet either way. Hold it against the head of the bolt and use that ratchet to get it in the rest of the way. Now, because of the lower sprocket there, gear sprocket, it's going to want to come off because it can't grasp the top of the head straight away. So just tilt your box end wrench a little bit. And that's good. And it's in there. That's the secret of that sucker. Okay. So now you can go ahead and tighten up those top 5/16 screws. Okay. So I'm going to leave this camera on this angle. I think you can see what I'm doing. there's the bottom right screw hole, okay, which is cake after doing that difficult one. So you can reach in here with your left hand and get it started by hand, okay? Just make sure you're not cross-threading it, because all the other bolts are tight now. Okay. And tighten that little 5/16 guy right down. And that's it. Now the mechanism is tight in the chassis again. Okay, now that we have some leader material fed into our machine, we manually turn it over to see how these loops are forming top and bottom. This is the top sprocket, that's the lower sprocket. The top sprocket, the loop should form midway between the inner and outer guide. So let's watch that. Once again, this is the top sprocket. You time it, you always time the top one first. And if we look over here, we can see where the loop is forming. And if we turn the projector over manually, you can see that that is not forming correctly. It's forming too close to the inner guide. So you adjust the top sprocket first. So you come in the back here and you find, what I do is I loosen both set screws on the sprockets, the sprocket gears, that is. And then when I need to adjust one, I can come back here. This is why you leave all the covers off of the machines till this is done. So back that one off, and now this gear is not connected to that shaft. So back and front, we're going to change that sprocket timing. Sometimes you can move it right here, but sometimes this top shaft is a little bit too tight. So I just put a pair of pliers on here. You could protect it with cloth or something, but really it'll never be used. So anyway, you see how I can adjust that loop in and out? So I'm going to move it out about there. Now the loop is about midway between the guides and it looks correct. So we come back here and tighten that set screw in the top sprocket and we check it. So out in front we can see that it's forming pretty much in the middle. That's good. It keeps changing, of course, because the shuttle is pulling on the film. All right, so that's the top one. Let's adjust the camera so we can see the bottom one here. How the loop forms down there. And run some leader through it. Now that is way off. And the reason it's way off is on the bottom film loop should be right up close to the loop restore roller, which is this thing right there. It should be up to but not touching it. So we go to our lower gear on the back, and we'll have to move the projector till I can get to the set screw that I can loosen. So I'll come in here with my spline tool, my 9966, and I'll loosen that set screw, okay? Now that sprocket gear is not connected to the shaft. So what you do is you come out in front and you use the actual sprocket and adjust it. You see how it got a lot closer? It's a lot closer now to, the film is a lot closer to this loop restore roller. So then in back, tighten that one set screw, okay? And then recheck your work. So it's getting close to, but not touching it. That looks good. I'm going to go ahead and look back up here. And this is often what happens. You adjust one, and there's kind of an interdependency. Now, the top sprocket, the top loop is forming too far out by this guide. So you go back and find that set screw on the top sprocket this time, and you loosen this, and using our pliers, because the shaft is too tight, we're going to pull that back, see, to where it's in the center. And then back in the back, we tighten that one set screw onto the gear. Now, double check our work again. Okay. The top one looks pretty good. Now we loosen this and double check our bottom loop formation. And that looks good. Close to, but not touching the loop restore, okay? And that's how you manually time the sprockets. Okay, this is going to be a quick look at how the loop restore works. What is a loop restore? Well, we've been talking about loops here. If the film gets a jam up here in the shuttle, it's going to pull the film tight right here, okay? It's going to pull this film tight. And if it pulls that film tight, it's going to push this roller up, okay? Because it can move, okay? See, it can move both ways. So a good way to test that you adjusted your loop restore cam gap correctly in the back is go ahead and run some film manually with your hand back here and simulate a jam, basically. Take and push that roller up and keep pulling film. And you see how it just pulled down the loop restore? That's what it does. That's the whole purpose of the loop restore roller. It tries to reform that loop before you tear film. Again, so let's say that the film jammed again in the shuttle. Whoop, got a jam. It'll come up and it will, as it comes around, boom, it will push that loop restore roller back down. And that's how the loop restore roller works, and that tells me that we adjusted it correctly when we assembled the mechanism. Okay, so we've got to put this little film guide back on the mechanism I took off. You may recall that keeps you from getting the mechanism out of the projector. So it just goes right back where it came from. And what you do is you slide it onto this tail piece here. All right, and then you can extend it back over to the loop where it belongs, the loop roller. And it's just attached with one screw. It doesn't have to be overly tight. There it is. And that's done. And a couple other little housekeeping things here. Recall that I'm a little anal about screws falling down inside. So I have tape over both of those holes. Originally I had a piece of paper, but tape works a little better. So you want to take that tape off of there before you forget, because without those holes, there's no ventilation really for the amp. So just reach in there and get those off of there. A very important task that we have is we need to lubricate the worm gear, and by doing so, both sprockets, and then we need to lubricate these gears here. Now I've wiped these clean. I get some alcohol and get the old grease off it. You don't have to be real fussy about it. Just get most of the old grease off as you can. These are really clean because I cleaned those outside with mineral spirits. So what I use is the silicone paste grease. It is a grease, but it's made out of silicone, so it's not petroleum based. And since we're dealing with plastic gears, I think that's a good idea. Now, a lot of people use white lithium grease, and that's fine as well. In fact, I think most people do. I just like this stuff. So it comes with a little brush inside. So as far as the worm gear goes, I start by applying some to a small section. And then reaching around and moving the belt pulley a little bit. I got a lot to learn as far as keeping my hands out of the way. And just keep doing that. Move on around and get some in there. Get another section. You don't need a lot. Now, you don't really need to go up here and put a lot on the sprocket gears because you can see it's already spreading out. So I just give it a few turns, get that grease up on the sprockets, top and bottom. Yeah, I might wipe a little bit off where it was too much. Okay, so it's time to get the idler gear back on here. And it goes right on this top sprocket, all right? So it has lugs in the back that correspond with the lugs in the gear. So when you put it on, turn it and you'll feel it fall in there. And then put this little plastic shim on there. Getting all greasy. That has to happen. All right, and then remember this funny little U retainer? It goes onto that shaft and it just slides on ever so easy. And then what keeps that in place is this gear has a little square boss on the back, or cavity, I guess you'd say it. And that square cavity falls on top of that retainer. So this is going to go on that way. There's two tangs here. One rests on that little curved piece. So we take this piece, our little square cavity, and put it, oh, by the way, there's a little shim here that goes on the gear. Sorry. All right, so you put that in that big hole, all right, and then you just go right over the top of the shaft. Shove it all together. You'll feel it when, there you go. You'll feel it. See, when I turn that gear, how it fell in over that keeper. And that's the way it goes together. And it'll stay there for a minute. There's a flat washer that goes on first and then a wavy washer. So flat washer and then wavy washer. This is why we covered that hole up again down below. If you drop this stuff, you're in the same boat. And then what holds that whole thing on there is this tiny little circlip. And there's no groove. It just pushes on. So now we're ready. We've got it loaded on our circlip pliers. And we're going to go straight onto that shaft, okay? I usually put my thumb in front of it in case it lets loose. There you go. That's simple. The little circlip has to be pushed on and hold everything together. And I know if it comes a little bit loose, you can have a problem with this idler assembly working correctly. So I take my little 5/16 socket and I put it over the end there. And I just give it a little tap so I know it's really on there, okay? Don't go crazy, but there should be a little tension. Gear to do goes on that shaft, and I had it numbered number 2 if I had to look at a photograph, right, like I would forget at this point. So just shove it on there. By the way, there's a little washer that stayed on the back. So get your circlip in place, get a regular pair of pliers, and just snap that thing on there. Alright? And that's it. It's on there. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and speed up the video during this section because it simply shows me putting the motor and the belt and the fan back on, as well as the projector lamp. If you have any questions about this, go back and review part 1 while I was disassembling it. Okay, we need to grease these transmission gears just like we did the worm gear and the worm gear sprockets. And again, just dab it on. You don't need a lot of grease on these. This grease is real sticky. I like it. Notice you don't have to go all the way around because just the operation of the transmission is going to distribute this grease. Okay. I did wipe these gears off earlier, by the way, and clean them a little bit with mineral spirits. And by the way, this machine is unplugged. Never work inside one of these that's not unplugged. Alright, that should be enough. Truly, that's plenty. I'm going to plug it back in, and we're going to... Okay. Alright, so now go ahead and just turn it on and forward, and let that grease distribute among all the gears. Turn it in reverse to get the other set of gears. And one thing I do, you see these down in here, those are gear reduction gears. They only operate when it's in rewind. So I did put a little grease on there. And I'm in reverse. And if I push the rewind button, you see them running? See those little guys working back there? Okay. And that's all you need to do to lube the transmission gears. Well, we're just about ready to put the covers back on this machine, but before we do, it's always a good idea to check the basic operation of things, since that entails a little bit of effort to button it up. So I'm going to go ahead and reach around and turn this machine on, and let's take a look at what's going on inside. So first of all, a disclaimer here. This is a 110 volt machine, so make sure any loose wires are taped, like the speaker wires or the condenser is secured and so forth. You don't want to short anything out, and you don't want to hurt yourself. So that's my disclaimer. So just take a basic look at what's going on. Come in here and see how that brand new worm gear looks to you. And then come over here and check the belt. Make sure it's not trying to come off or anything weird like that. You can take a quick look at the shuttle and the shutter spinning here. Just basically, you know, it's common sense. Take a look around that the gears are spinning well. And it's always a good idea to put it into reverse. Okay, well, reverse looks pretty good to me. Take up reel looks good in the back too. Now up in front, of course, we want to take a look at our top and bottom loops, which is a critical thing. The take-up reel is running smoothly. So let's zoom in and look at the top loop. And it looks good. It's not perfectly in the middle, but that's okay, not to overanalyze. Down on the bottom loop looks fine. In fact, it looks great. So I'd say that I'm about ready to slap the covers on this. Okay, well, it's time to go back on autopilot again. All I'm showing here is how to reinstall the covers and the top and the back. So sit back and relax, and I'll get back with you at the end. Okay, well, I think it's high time that we run some film through this rebuilt projector. I'm sure you know how to do this. All right, ready, set, go. All right, everything looks good. Loops look good. Let's watch a movie. Your commentator is Robert Stevens. America goes to war. Men of the Army, Navy, and Marines reinforce the battlefront on 6 continents to save the homes and ideals of free men from Axis domination. In Ireland, United States fighting men who have safely crossed the submarine-infested Atlantic strengthen their ever-increasing Okay, well, I'm quite pleased, and I think we can call this one done. I want to thank everybody who watched these videos, and if it helps just one person with their projector, I'd be tickled. Be hoping to hear from you if you put a gear in with the help of these videos. And that's it. Over and out.
10,000 miles from home, man and supplies pouring through India, the last doorway to China.